We have an abundance of color here in Northern California because of our June bloom, but we also do get a little bit of June gloom because it can be foggy and overcast and quite windy here. Might even rain once or twice here in June, although most of the days are pretty lovely. 78 degrees, something like that. But the flowers have exploded. The hydrangeas, oh my gosh, the roses, the lavender, the snapdragons, the impatiens, and well, not to mention the California poppies and all the wildflowers on our hillsides. The hills are still a little bit green, but they will be turning golden pretty soon. Hence, that's why we're called the Golden State, these rolling golden hills. Although right now it's just so pretty to see all this color, to see all these beautiful flowers out there. Did I mention roses? They are everywhere and gorgeous. Oh, yeah, June. Just the color is phenomenal. Hi, I'm Laura. Welcome to my channel. This is what I call So Special, and I like to share my sewing, my knitting, and other creative projects from my happy place right here. I start with usually what I'm wearing. This is handmade. I just made a simple t-shirt out of some extra fabric, and I do have a go-to pattern for my t-shirts. I like to use Love Notions, and her classic tee is very, very nice. You have different necklines, you have different sleeve lengths, super easy, quick make. I do use the overlocker serger. I do a cover stitch on the sleeve, and I do a cover stitch on the hem. But this fabric came from actually a different project. I made a dress from this fabric, which I purchased about 5 years ago from Joann Fabrics. Sadly, they're not with us anymore. But in any case, this is a heavy, sturdy knit. And this dress right here, oh, it actually was supposed to be like a practice. But look at these stitch lines here. And there's stitches here. And look at these nice, pleats. 2 large pleats in the front, 2 large pleats in the back. I really like this dress. I guess you would call this maybe a fit and flare maybe, because it does have a slight flare in the skirt, but it's such a nice fit. And this pattern was an introduction to sewing knits, and it was by Sew Over It. This is called the Emma dress, and I will show you the line drawings here because that does help with the details. There are no side seam pockets, but I will say easy to put in if you want them. Like I said, this was a test and it came out beautifully. I didn't have to make any adjustments to the pattern, so I've got a wearable toile, as they say. But yes, the t-shirt is left over from making the dress. FOs. I do share right off the bat if I have any finished objects, and the first one that I'm going to mention to you is my shawl, because I finished the doe knee shawl and I soaked it and I blocked it, and here she is. She's all done and ready for her debut. Ta-da! Now I'll come close up a little bit, see if you can make out that stitch pattern. And I'm telling you, I love this thing so much. She's now living in a prestigious corner of my living room, which is basically my reading corner. And I like that spot because it's got good light and it's my quiet spot, little there, from my morning reading or maybe afternoon, evening reading. And I like to, if you don't know this, I'll put a button on the corner of this shawl. And then this particular pattern happens to have a good number of yarn overs that create a hole. So I can use one of these as my buttonhole. And I will basically wrap this around my body and I will button it in the back behind me. And then that way I have a little coziness in the morning or in the evening, and it's not a big commitment like a huge heavy robe. So this is what I like to do. And by the way, the button idea is because that way when I do get up and move around, or my hands go in the sink or whatever, those ends don't dangle around and get it, you know, drop into anything and stuff. Everything kind of stays put nicely. And yeah, so that's my Doni shawl. She's done. I'm happy with her. She turned out beautifully. And she's in service now. So the pattern, Dohne, Dohne. There are two versions, version 1, version 2. I happen to do version 2. This is by Ocean, spelled Oceaan. You can find this pattern on Ravelry. I did use Barocco Vintage DK weight for my yarn, and this is colorway 2136, 2136 Barocco. Very soft, not too expensive, very affordable, very nice. All right, finished objects, right? Okay, so I do have another one. I just got this goodie back from the lady who does my long arm service. And so I now have an soon to be finished quilt. And this is the waterfall. Ta-da! The binding is on. I have got it clipped all around the edges because I like to hand sew my binding. I love having a quilt in my lap, and I like doing that little bit of stitching either with a book on tape, or if I'm watching something with my husband, or maybe I'm watching my YouTube videos, and it's just soothing and relaxing to me to do that. So that's my preference. Yes, let me give a shout out to this girl. Marianne is amazing. She's so much fun. Marianne Burnett. She is a quilt by Ma, if you can make out that business card, I hope. And she does the most beautiful custom quilts. She does edge to edge, you know, she does it all really. And she's just got a lovely, lovely business. She turns around very quickly. And she's actually fun to sit and sip your coffee with and chat with in Starbucks and talk all things quilts and sewing. Well, she picked out the stitch pattern for me. Well, she gave me quite a few things to choose from, and I'm going to try and see if we can find a spot where we can make out the pattern a little well. Probably on the border, you can see it. Let's see. You see some of that on the border? I wonder if you can make out the color. The color of the thread, I believe, is called wheat. And it just, I mean, the camera doesn't do it justice. It just looks perfect here on this quilt. I'm really delighted with that. Number 2 finished object is a little table topper. This one was a fun project I took up to Tahoe with me, and it was great for a few days up there. This block is called Courthouse Steps, I believe, and this is just a 28.5 by 28.5 inch square. You could use it as a wall hanging too, but I'm going to put it over a coffee table, and its binding is on. I believe this would be great for a scrap project too, because what I did was I used some 10-inch squares and half a yard of background, half a yard of binding, and 1 yard of backing. That's it. And this baby is all ready, set to go. I did use 6-inch foundation paper by Fat Quarter Shop because I felt like doing a foundation paper piecing project, and yeah, it was fun. Let's talk binding, because I wonder, are you in the family of the width of fabric strip, which is quick and easy? cutting out your binding, or are you the bias binding family? I like both methods. I use both methods. It just depends on what I feel like at the time, or maybe how much fabric I have. I will say that the bias binding I have method I have read is much more durable and takes less fabric to make. If you use the perfect square method, which you can easily, there's lots of tutorials out there. I'm sure you can find that. But I learned that method through goodquilt.com, which is Maxie Ramey. And she taught that to me, and I've just loved it ever since. It's very easy to do that math and decide how much binding length you need for your quilt, and then how to cut that out. Now, they say it's more durable because this edge here, if you're just doing with the fabric straight on the grain strips, will only allow maybe a couple of threads on top here of this edge. So that can wear and fray more easily. If you do the bias binding, where bias binding is wrapping, you've got several threads, right, that are wrapping over the edge. So that's going to be more durable. And also the bias binding is going to, it's going to do curves much easier, stuff like that. So we all know that. Well, listen, I have a little clip I'm going to show you right here that is how I do my join and my corners. So check this out. Well, I thought I would show just how I do my binding. And I've got a small little table topper here. I just pull out a little length and I usually start on the bottom quarter and line up my 2.5-inch binding strip. And then I start out with a test. And so I will use a long stitch to sort of determine whereabouts I would like to have my binding placed. So I'll cut that and then I'll just fold it over, have a look here and a look here, and see up how much is inside encased in where I stitched. And if I like that distance, then I will go ahead and shorten my stitch length and go ahead and sew it up. So as I go here, I'm going to demonstrate to you how I do my corners. So I like it about here. And so away I go. I'm going to start stitching. Get this going. I'm sure everybody does it pretty much the same way, but there are different methods out there. And yeah, just in case anybody was curious about how I like to do my bindings, I thought I'd just show. All right, now at this point, I like to measure my stitch width, or where I'm stitching, and then I'll bring it down here and measure my corner. And with a little marker, I'll give it a little mark. And this is where I'm going to stop stitching. Now, I'm not one to do, I'm going to back stitch a couple of them. Going to cut the stitch. Then I'm going to bring it towards me and I'm going to do my fold. I like to line this up, do a little finger press, bring it back around, line this up nice with the corner, and then I'll use a little clip those together right there to hold them in place. And then I'm going to adjust my project and turn it around so that I can have a nice clean start. And gauge where I want this to go down, where I want to start stitching. I think I'm going to start about here. A nice little, you could do a back stitch there if you like, and then keep on going, pull out my clip, Got lots of threads around here. Yeah, so this is my corner. Now, I'm going to pause this and I will then demonstrate how I put my two binding ends together after I've done all of the other three corners. All right, I have finished my last corner and I'm going to continue to sew just for a little ways. Don't have to go much farther than that because I'd like plenty of room to work with. So I'm going to cut my stitch there after back stitching a little bit. I'm going to take my binding ends and I'm going to measure where I want to cut. So let's see here. All righty, get me a pair of scissors. And I'm dealing with this much space. So I'm going to just go right to the middle here and give this a nice straight cut. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay it flat, kind of weight it down a little bit there. And what I'll do is take the other piece and that I cut off and I will open it up. And I will put it about here in the middle. And I'm going to measure basically the width using that piece that I cut off. Kind of line that up nice and flat. And that will tell me where to cut my other binding piece. And do a nice straight cut there. Voila. Get rid of those. Okay, now here is where I'm going to use a few clips and a few pins. And I will take one piece and I will lay it out flat. I will grab this side and I will kind of clip my quilt top together with a clip. And this is just going so that I have a little bit of space to work with, kind of scrunching it together so I don't have to hold it myself. So the top one is out flat. The second one, I'm going to turn over and I'm going to do right sides facing. I'm going to line this up, give it a little pin there in the corner, another little pin in this corner. Just keep things flat. Again, I like to use my marker because I want to let myself know where these little corners are. And then I'm going to go ahead and start stitching this together with a straight stitch. And I've got my guide on, my guide light on just to help you with the, you can draw a line if you want, but I thought maybe this would make it easier for you to see. I'm going to start stitching. Might do a back stitch, not always. But I'm just going to stitch this from corner to corner and then take my pins out, open this up. Now I'll do a little looky-see here that it's what I want. Then I'll give it a trim. And I'll just do a little finger press with my fingernail there and then fold it together. Make sure that my seam is finger pressed together. And now I can go ahead and finish up my binding. It lays nice and flat. I don't have any bubbles or creases. And I can pick up where I left off here. And sew this together. Doesn't have to be perfect. But there's my join. And I'm sure quite a few people have demonstrated this. I know some people prefer to use a walking foot when they are sewing their binding on, and that's fine. I don't find it completely necessary for me to use a walking foot. I want to straighten some of this out because I do have a little bit extra. There we go. Stretch it out. A little smoothing as I go, right? There. It comes together beautifully. I keep on going and then give it a little cut. And now when I do my binding, I like to do I like to hand stitch it. A lot of people prefer to do a sewing machine stitch, but I like to hand stitch it. So I will press this out a little bit here, and then I will fold it over and I will put some clips all around, just a few, and then I will do my little hand stitching, and that's how I like to do my binding. Ta-da! You're back. Well, let's jump right in now to what's coming up, because I have so many fun things I want to make, and I decided to go on a little cutting out frenzy, if you know what I mean. I decided to cut out some projects so that I have plenty of things to choose from when I jump in here and I have some time to play. Well, yes, I did finally pick a pattern for that fabric that I recently purchased. I would like a summer dress or something that it can do double duty, like maybe a bathing suit cover-up as well, out of this fabric. And this is just a nice, comfortable, soft stretch knit. I chose Simplicity 1358. Well, look at how easy that's going to be, right? I'm going to do view A, and that just has a simple round neck. I'm not going to do the full length. I think what I'm going to do is make it like maybe a maxi length for me. But I do think this will make a great, easy, secret pajama type of slip-on summer dress, or maybe, you know, my bathing suit cover-up. Stay tuned for that one. Also, I happen to spot in my stash of stuff in this room this fabric and this pattern. I really want to make this and get it out there onto my kitchen island, but this is a table runner I decided to make, and this pattern is called Rain Lilies, and the pattern only needs two 5-inch square charm packs. And I believe you just need what does it say? 7/8 of a yard of background, 2/3 of a yard of binding, and 2 yards of backing. Boom, boom, you're done. Well, I really like this because I've not made this type of block before, and you're using a 4-in-1 hexi ruler, which I have. And yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm going to make these blocks. This is the fabric line. Ta-da! And put that table runner together. Anxious to get that going. And the other thing I cut out is, yes, I said I was going to do it. I did it. I cut out the Serenade. Looking forward to making this one. This is going to be a 56.5 square by 56.5 inches. And so, you know, a simple lap quilt, but these fabrics. They're called Romantica is the fabric line, and this is going to be fun. I can't wait to start piecing that. I also did receive my scan and cut project. Yes, I mentioned before that I did sign up for a bi-monthly subscription box for the scan and cut. I really want to get using that more. And I see my friends out there in YouTube land that are using their scan and cuts and having fun. Well, this is going to help me get in the groove, right? Amy Sews is doing this, and I just received the second one in her series. And so I'm very excited. It's mediums I've never used before, and it's a project that's totally outside my wheelhouse. I've never made it, so I'm so anxious to do it. As soon as I carve out a little me time and I get to focus on that, I'll put it together and then I'll bring it to you and let you know what I think. So yes, I've got some fun things to play with now, and that's very exciting for me anyway. So you know what? This brings us to a little bit of life. And with the good weather, I do like to be outside. So I am golfing a lot because that's my favorite outdoor pastime. I do have my lovely parents still with me, and they are turning 90 this year. So yes, I'm the party planner, and we're putting on a big 90th celebration party, which really is a family reunion. and and it's a big undertaking, and so that's occupying a lot of my time. But how can you not do it? You know, it's a big milestone. 90. Wow. Yes. I know the family will appreciate it too. So there's that. And wow, we have 4th of July just around the corner. Big 250th celebration. So that's a big deal. Gonna party with the friends. Yes, gonna party with the friends, and the fireworks and the barbecue. It's gonna be a lot of fun to do that. So I've got that going on as well. But I'll tell you, not everything goes as planned. Not everything is smooth sailing. All right. Now, recently, one of my adult children, I have 4, but this is number 2 son, who just breaking my heart. This guy works. He's a hard worker. He's a good guy, but he's pretty sick right now. He does suffer with asthma. So his asthma has flared up, and along with that, some congestion. And then now, you know, I'm just trying to encourage him to come stay with me for the weekend so I can do a little doctoring on him and mothering. I just don't want this to turn into some serious infection for him. It's not a good time for that to happen because, unfortunately, his car was hit. It was a hit and run, like really a hit and run. Yes, it was parked, and unfortunately, it was not parked inside the parking lot. It was parked on the street of his apartment complex. And yeah, somebody rammed into it and didn't leave a note, didn't try to track him down or contact him in any way. And he got up in the morning as usual, went out to his car to make his way to work, and found it like that. It was not drivable. It'd be one thing if it was scraped up, but really they smashed into it pretty good because what did they say? The frame is bent, and maybe the suspension has damage to the back wheel, because they who knows what they did, but it's the side door, side panel, and into the wheel. It's so disappointing, really, really disappointing. Yeah, so this is what we tell the kids or adult children, you have to do it, but you don't have to figure it out all alone by yourself. We will help you figure it out, and you need to do it, but we'll help you figure it out. Basically, that's we'll do what we can to help them get this thing straightened out, but it's just really disappointing. He's had to use a rental car for work and or an Uber or a Lyft, and you know that just gets more and more expensive and not something he can afford at all. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll get through it. Things happen, and thankfully nobody was hurt that we know of. I hope the people in the other car weren't hurt, but we have no way of knowing what happened. We did look around and see if there were cameras. Like I said, unfortunately, it wasn't inside the parking lot where the cameras are trained on. And this particular part of the street is, there aren't homes that would have, you know, Ring cameras or something on them, and or businesses. So we just haven't found anything that could help us with any footage. But he did fill out a police report, but you know, that's only for the insurance company, I suppose, because we won't know or be able to find anybody, I'm sure. Yeah, bummer. Real bummer. Anyway, okay, enough of that. Yeah, so life is just trucking along, and it's not all bad, you know. Most of it is pretty darn good. Well, anyway, this is where I'm going to ask you to please give me a like. Definitely give me a comment. I want to hear from you guys. Tell me what's going on in your neck of the woods. And, you know, what's your favorite thing to do? Are you a sewer? Are you a knitter? Are you a crafter? Anyway, yeah, and subscribe for more fun content, because I will be back soon. I look forward to it. Until then, have fun creating, and I'll see you next time.